gotta be out here by 9. I don't think we should go that long, but.
No,
Yeah.
I'm
in the same boat.
a lot of this is like just introductory stuff for you to review for the next meeting.
All right, we are live on YouTube. I'm good to go.
Rolling around.
Yeah.
Go for it. Okay, call the meeting to order, get a roll call of members present.
Commissioner Fry,
Present.
Commissioner Bissell,
Here.
Commissioner Green,
Here.
Commissioner Angles.
Here.
Commissioner Bicknell.
Here.
Excellent, we do have a quorum.
Perfect. We got no public comment. So I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the agenda of the minutes. So moved. Second. Moved and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That carries. Okay. So we are on to Autumn Meadows, Whitman Park Planning.
So, Robert Phipps is here. He is the chosen consultant from PBS who will help us with this. So just as a little refresher, when Autumn Meadows petitioned to essentially get rid of their private assets, they created a local improvement district, and part of the finances of that is they gave some money toward improving the park and park planning because it's there at the moment, but that was not set up to city standards because it was a private park. So now we have that. So now it's figuring out what to do with it. And then in addition, there's some extra land over at the southwest corner of Whitman and Maple because we built well number 6. And it didn't take up the whole site, but the issue is for a remainder of the site that isn't in the fence line, there's essentially like a relief culvert that goes to the ditch along Whitman. So it essentially encumbers the site where you couldn't really like short plat it to like put a house on it. But I think there's a way maybe to do a park or something because it's just there pretty much. So with that, Robert's gonna help us over the coming months here figure out what to do with both of these pieces of property. So with that, Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. You guys hear me? Just always got to do a mic check.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, great. Yeah, thanks, Mike. So this is kind of an introduction. So I'm Robert Phipps, PBS Senior Landscape Architect. I'm out of our Vancouver office. We did visit the site early on as part of the proposal effort, and we looked at both sites, and then we've developed a couple exhibit boards and kind of a programmatic photo just as some inspiration ideas to discuss further. We'll kind of go through a little bit of the constraints that we see on the sites and maybe some of the opportunities. And our approach on this is after this kind of kickoff programmatic meeting, we'll go back to the drawing board on terms of developing 2 concepts for each site. We'll present those to the committee at the next meeting. And then from there, we'll either refine or choose one, and we'll use that one to develop a preliminary cost estimate with our civil engineering group. So over the next 2 to 3 months, that's kind of our schedule on doing getting a kind of a deliverable back to the city for approval. So we'll start with Autumn Meadows. I don't know if you want me to share my screen or if you got something on your side that you want to share. What's easiest for you?
You can share yours if you want to.
Okay, I'll do that. All right, let me know if you guys can see that.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, so Autumn Meadows Park, it's about a little less than half an acre. Part of the proposal was this leftover. In the proposal was this leftover piece that called Preservance Park, and then we have the property area, which includes this lower existing neighborhood park with some park amenities and some really steep slopes, along the property. And one of the goals was to look at getting a connecting path from this lower basin to, or this lower site to this upper half And that would look at, some additional, switchbacks in order to make that happen if we want to try to meet at least trail design guidelines there. Within the proposal, there was some desire for maybe some new playground equipment. Much of the amenities out there are pretty dated, need a little bit of disarray. Probably likely a good opportunity to replace those in combination with concepts. And then per the proposal, there was some discussion of maybe some area for a community garden for the seniors. Talk about some of the concerns: steep slopes, limited nearby parking. There is probably room to park parallel, along the sidewalk there. But if you've got a number of visitors, at some point it probably gets a little bit constrained in terms of just maneuverability. Lower side is relatively uneven. We could definitely develop, a flatter area with some terracing through our engineering group. And then we talked about the existing site amenities that are a little bit dated. I also wanted to just do some, these are some of the drone flights that we took as part of the project, just to give you a kind of an overall perspective from a different angle. So this is the lower half here and some steep slopes along here to that leftover Preservation Park there. And another view, seeing it from kind of a different angle. And then a little bit closer up shot, the equipment here, like I said, is dated, and it's dated not only from a repair standpoint, but it's also, in today's age of, all-inclusive play being a highly desired, it's a little dated on kind of just the functionality of different play activities. There's another close-up view of just the lower half, some existing trees. When I was out there, the trees, were pretty decent shape, so I don't see really necessarily need to remove anything from a hazardous, scenario, but we can definitely work around them since they're on the outer limits. So, so before I go into the next site, I think I would like to do is just kind of engage the committee and get some thoughts on, some concept ideas. These photos of we included in the exhibit boards were some additional ideas. Some of this was from the proposal, but also maybe some other potential ideas that maybe would spark a discussion for us to go move forward. So because of the steep slopes and the hillside, we could create some sort of hillside playground with, maybe a slide and different sort of activities that incorporates the actual hill and work with the actual slopes as an advantage. Fitness equipment. So this is in combination to, maybe the community garden that was already identified. We could add some adult fitness equipment. Replacement of the picnic shelter. Could be any style, shape, not maybe something we want to talk about, what sort of themes we want to include. And then with the slopes, even just the more gradual slopes, we can create some sort of amphitheater style presentation. And then this is kind of an example of what we may have to do to create a walking path that meets either ADA and or just trail design guidelines to those two parcel areas. So at this juncture, I just like to open it up, kind of open forum, and discuss anything that we PBS should definitely incorporate or not incorporate into two different alternatives.
So Robert, one of the things that I was looking at this, what if you did that hillside playground? Well, I guess what can't all, so you've shown 6 things, right? So I assume if you do an amphitheater, you can't do the hillside playground, right?
Correct. Yep.
If you do the walking paths, can you do the hillside playground?
I believe so. I think you can incorporate that. I think there's enough room. It might be a smaller hillside playground once you start to lay it out, but I think there's room to connect the two areas and then still have a smaller hillside amenity.
But as a way to maximize a pretty small space and get more playground into that little space, even a small amount of hillside playground really could do a lot.
Yeah, I really
like
like
that. I've never seen that before either.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
Because you have hillside going to, I can't read it, to Newgate, and you have hillside going up to 12th, right?
On this
Yeah.
one, so yeah, so I think if you're going to do a playground, because this is steep and it's going down to your residential, your playground hillside would probably incorporate somewhere here.
Sure.
And then your path would some either go in front or maybe you switch back on the back side, you know, and get up this way. That's something we would look into when we start to dive into the concepts is where's our least path of resistance. And obviously we don't want to, you know, have to create huge amount of walls to make this happen. That's going to be very expensive, but I think you're going to need some sort of retaining to get the switchbacks to work.
I'm concerned about the house and field area at the bottom of the hill. What sort of boundary or how can we make the situation comfortable for both parties, you know, the city and what we're planning to do and the people at the bottom of the hill?
So I think, you know, I think replacement of a fence there is an existing fence on the outside, but I think that fence in the middle, I believe, look at the photo here. Actually, it might be a wire fence that there. It's hard to, or it might just be nothing at this point. But I think definitely creating and adding a wood fence for privacy, or if you wanted something like a chain link with slats, you could do it that way. You could also on the inside of the park, you could create some additional like low shrubs just to kind of soften up the additional fence there. This area being the steeper part of the site, this is going to be somewhat limited in what you can do unless you're going to really create a retaining wall to hold back this the roadside in order to do something and flatten this out enough. But you could definitely probably get you know, connecting trail through here, but probably not much more just because of the steepness without doing a lot of walls. But I mean, we can do walls, but it's at expense. You could definitely replant this and enhance it just kind of in a natural type planting, in addition to your trail that might connect to the park there.
Yeah, but if we approach it as a trail, then it sort of enhances the exercise nature of, you know, the connection between the two places. And then you're using the hillside as a way to make it more exercise oriented, because you're, you know, climbing the hill. It's like a stair, it's like a stair machine, but connecting two nice places. And then I'm hoping that there's a way to make the view off towards the mountains more interesting than the view of the people's house. So yeah, I like the idea of natural boundaries. I think that will enhance the experience of being on the trail.
Okay.
Mike, has any discussion happened with the property owners around this impending project?
I mean, we did send a notice via the mail. I haven't heard anything. And the other thing that's important to know with that property too, is it's a little bit of difference in jurisdictions. It's actually an unincorporated island. Yeah, it's really strange. That property is like actually county, but surrounded by city.
Well, as an avid cyclist, I love the idea of a pump track, but it's hard to see how it would fit effectively without taking up the entirety of the park. And certainly it's something I'd love to see somewhere in this larger community, because there isn't one anywhere nearby. But I do have a hard time seeing how that might work here outside of just taking up the entire project.
Yeah, I think so. We broke this up in kind of half. So that was something that we were envisioning as an opportunity at the other site. So yeah, and I think once you see that site that being has a lot more opportunity being flat, that, you know, pump track could be a possibility here.
Nice to be back.
Got back in.
I mean, I like the idea of the hillside playground. I think it's really cool. my thing is, I don't know how much we can do there. And I like the idea of building that walking path to tie into the park at the top. I think I don't know that neighborhood down there very well. I don't know what the age group is of it. Is it young families? Is it older
It tends to be more middle-aged, I would say, Autumn Meadows, so late thirties, forties, early fifties-ish.
So I just wonder if sort of I mean, I don't think an amphitheater with the neighborhood there plays for me, but, I think the four, kind of the three things on the right side, even if we could put a picnic shelter with those, I think that flow is really kind of a cool, healthy, place, the hillside and into Perseverance, you know?
Yeah, so for me, as far as the hillside playground, I think that's a really strong idea. I was at a local zoo or a zoo in San Diego, and I mean, there were like toys everywhere, and the kids were just running up and down this playground. So I think it's a really successful concept. The question is, right, are there families there? So I think we should do some sort of investigation. I think, the raised garden beds was something that I had brought up, knowing that I'm pretty sure this is an older demographic, but kind of, restating other people's concerns, like definitely the view is a challenge. And so I think we would have to do some significant planting, because a fence or no fence, you can see directly into these yards. And we'd have to have something way more vertical than just a 6-foot fence, because as soon as you get any elevation on any part, the view is essentially ruined. There's, you're kind of, no matter what we do to the actual property we have, it's kind of, it doesn't feel like, yeah, the investment feels a little bit disjointed to the surrounding community in some ways. So I did want to go back though and ask about parking. I know you said that there's no parking on 12th. What are our options? Is it only Newgate? I mean, is there a way to take that? I know the bench area has already been sort of laid out, but is that a potential for parking with the path going to the park? I mean, whether we do gardens or something for families, people will have to park. And I feel like that's a big challenge right now.
Well, I will say this, like 12th Street, you can park on both sides, whether Peoplewood's a whole nother thing, but parking is allowed over there, so you can park along 12th Street. I mean, honestly, because I bike through there, I would say that that's a little bit more preferable. Just because with Newgate, you have that sign about Autumn Meadows in the middle of the road. So if you try to shove parking in there, where would the traffic go? Because it's a fairly narrow road going down a hillside. So to me, with how wide 12th Street is over there, you can easily have the park on both sides and not really affect the travel lanes at all.
So here's a thought. I mean, thinking more about this slope, it's a cool idea. And it could be a cool way to use an unusual piece of property, but it also starting to feel a little bit forced, especially when you consider the view and what people see walking down. Wonder about the possibility of just extending the flat portion out enough to where you could do angled parking along that section of 12 and not taking it out very far, but just enough to do some diagonal parking up along there. That would it would still kind of visually connect that space between the two parks and allow a natural place to put vehicles.
That's interesting.
It would still require a wall, obviously, but not very deep.
I would think it would be pretty expensive to do that.
Yeah, because I think you've got some horizontal distance already created as a result of the sidewalk. So you know, that's an advantage. You wouldn't need it much more for the wall on the parking. We can look at one of our options to include parking there. And how
Even
many?
if it was just a pull out where you could get 5 cars and
Parallel style.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, because then you sort of take the sidewalk, you tie into that area, you still get to tie into Perseverance. Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm starting to agree. I think as much as I really like the idea of the hillside park, but I really do. I'd really like to see more about the demographics, because if it truly is primarily a middle-aged based neighborhood, I do think that garden beds and picnic shelters and other And even the fitness equipment probably make a whole lot more sense for what the actual use of the park will be. And it's a different park than we have anywhere else in the community, which isn't a bad thing either. We've got a phenomenal family-oriented park that's coming together, and
Yeah.
so having something that's a bit different and fits the demographic of the neighborhood makes a lot of sense.
I would just say if we think the main parking area is gonna be up on 12th Street, just because I think then naturally people are gonna be parking on both sides of the street. We probably should consider a rapid flashing beacon or something that people could activate at Newgate and 12th, because it does tend to be a little bit of a raceway through there.
It's a good idea. Even just with having another development across the street and the traffic that might naturally come across, that's probably a wise idea anyway.
Hey, you wanna move on to share with us a little bit about the other of our maple?
Sure. Okay. All right, so Maple and Whitman site, about a half an acre as well. This is a much flatter site. And some of the goals that were identified in the proposal that was sent was potentially a playground area with some new playground equipment, a skate park, and or a pickleball court. Skate park and pickleball court, those are typically usually two different demographics. So that's something else that we would look into a little bit is, what is the demographic difference between here and then comparison to the other site. Some of our concerns was, the kind of, and Mike alluded to this, you've got this emergency overflow ditch that comes from the well system. And so incorporating that into the site so that it feels kind of cohesive and not like this leftover thing. So connecting it through like a boardwalk, so we have access to the sidewalk, and maybe we meander, the path system through the park itself, coming from both different sidewalks. So there's some fluid connectivity on that. This is a little bit, lower residential, so it felt comfortable to build a park along here. It's a little wider, and so I think there's opportunity to do parking along parallel, but we could also look at doing additional actual pull-off on-site parking as well. So I'll go and show in some of these, some of the drone flights for this one. So you can see this, pretty relatively flat ditch on both sides, much larger on the along the right-hand side of the screen there. And then from the back side, you do have some residential. The area